I was talking about this the other night with my friend because I hopped on Fortnite for like the first time. Actually, no, the second time ever. And he was telling me about all the new like updates that they did and all the new collabs. And I was like, is this the best game ever? Like, it is insane how big this game is and how every season people are so hyped to play this game still.
Dota 2 might like a word.
I know no one that plays Dota 2 besides you.
Am I no one to you, Adam?
Besides you.
I think you could argue right off the bat in current games that are very popular, that have been for a long time, is like Minecraft's pretty up there also.
Welcome back to the podcast that only talks about Apple and the Nintendo Switch 2. In 2020, I had to get it in there at some point.
It's good transcript SEO.
You guys might remember that in 2021, Epic, the company that makes Fortnite, sued Apple with this absolutely epic video that they dropped as soon as Fortnite got kicked off the App Store. Basically what happened is that Epic had a system in Fortnite that would allow you to go buy the Fortnite bucks somewhere else for cheaper.
V-Bucks.
They knew it was against the rules.
Fortnite
Yeah, V-Bucks.
bucks.
V-Bucks.
V-Bucks, yeah.
V-Bucks.
Yeah.
They knew it was against the rules. Apple kicked them off the App Store. They immediately dropped a lawsuit and this 1980 Fortnite video.
Banger video.
Do you remember this?
It was so good.
Yeah.
It was a whole PR stunt.
It was a whole PR stunt. They had it ready. They were doing this on purpose.
Apple walked right into it.
They did. They did walk right into it. So Epic sued them, and it was a pretty long lawsuit that took a while to resolve, but it did resolve. And Apple actually won most of the case, which was quite ironic because Epic also sued Google, and Google lost the case, and it was for almost the same thing. So it was kind of dumb. But part of the case that they did not win was that the judge decided that there needed to be anti-steering laws in place, which is to say Apple is not allowed to not let developers tell people you can go get this cheaper somewhere else. This whole problem stems from the fact that Apple takes a 30% tax on all digital purchases through the App Store.
And all microtransactions inside of apps.
Right, which is a digital
in the
purchase.
App Store as well. Yeah. So anytime you buy an app, anything, and then anytime you buy anything in the app.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Famously, Kindle books too. You could not buy Kindle books
because
in
it was a
app
digital
anymore.
asset, which is ironic because if you bought a real book on Amazon, it would not be subjected to that tax.
Wow.
But if you bought a Kindle book, it would be subjected to that tax. So there were circumstances where physical books were cheaper than ebooks.
Wow.
Because of this. For the
Especially
developer.
at your local independent bookstore.
Yes. Okay. So the part that Epic won was that the judge said that they couldn't stop developers from telling people, oh, you can like go get this cheaper somewhere else, or like, you know, go to this link so that you can go onto the web. If you remember correctly, Apple implemented this fairly quickly, but they did it in the most malicious compliance way possible. They created this extremely complex thing for developers where they were like, okay, well, technically you can allow people to like go off of the App Store into the web, but they added all of these pop-ups that were like, are you sure you want to go to the web? We can't control what happens there.
Commit crimes. Do it.
Yes. So yeah, it was very scary, and Apple basically had a very bad faith interpretation of that ruling. So what happened next was that the case kept going, and Apple basically got caught doing a bunch of malicious compliancy things that the judge decided was like not fitting into the law that she had like told them to do, right? Yeah. So there was this injunction that came down a few days ago, and it was basically saying like, oh, you didn't listen to anything I said. You just created all these bad faith interpretations of my ruling, and now I'm going to screw you over because you screwed me over.
Like, you didn't learn your lesson from this. Now I need to teach you a lesson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there were all of these.
TLDR.
Yeah, pretty much. A lot of internal messages that Apple had sent to one another within the company got released, and a lot of stuff that was in that was them repeatedly choosing the most like user hostile options possible to try to steer people away from doing anything off of the App Store.
Yeah.
For example, Apple had to allow buttons, links, or other calls to action, which they interpreted as one or the other instead of all of them. So the ruling said buttons, links, or other calls to action, and Apple was like, oh, so we can do a button, a link, or another call to action. instead of all of them. Wow. So they created all these mock-ups that
is
basically
the most lawyer thing. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
They created all these mock-ups that showed different options where it was like, okay, we could do this, or we could make it really, really hard for the user to be able to use this thing. And there's these messages from people within Apple where they're saying like, oh, make it scarier, make it harder for the user. They literally said scarier. And they were sending mock-ups to each other and just making them more and more convoluted. And there's messages from people within Apple being like, oh, keep going, make it even worse.
No, it was literally, ooh, keep going.
This also, like, I think to our audience, getting a little warning that says, are you sure you want to go there? We can't control it. Like, we've all been there. We've all done that. We click it immediately.
Wait, you've been on the internet?
Yeah.
Like, our parents, if my mom saw that, she would probably call me and be like, I think I have a virus on my phone.
Yeah.
Without even clicking the button. Sorry, Mom. I know you're listening to this.
Totally,
but
yeah.
like,
No, 100%.
yeah, like that's terrifying for 90% of phone
Yeah.
users.
Yeah, those dialog boxes are designed to stop you from doing it. It's kind of the same thing as like when you first, well, maybe this is just something I do a lot, but when you first get an Android phone and you have never sideloaded anything, you have to go into Chrome settings and be like, allow me to install things from not the Play Store, so that every time I go to install something, like I sideload it, it doesn't pop up the dialog box and go, okay, just so you know, this is not from the App Store. Are you sure you want to do this? And I go, yes. So yeah, it's designed to stop you.
You know how Apple already makes it hard for you to like open a YouTube video because it's like open in Safari and it's that little dialog box. Mm-hmm. They like showed that as an option for going out of the App Store. They're like, no, we need to make it way worse. So they made a full page thing that said, are you sure you want to continue? With like a bunch of scary text that didn't make any sense, that just kind of freaked people out. They also on that window listed the developer name instead of the app name. So it's like Apple cannot control this anymore. It's actually in the hands of developer name, which most people do not know who the developer of the app that they're using is.
Or worse, it's like an indie developer who just goes by their real name.
Right.
And then you're like, who's this guy?
Yeah. The develop like John Appleseed is going to be in control of your data now. Mm-hmm. So all this stuff. There are even messages from a user experience manager at Apple who said that the phrasing sounds scary, so execs will love it.
Wow.
Yeah. It's just
And then the judge is reading all this like, y'all didn't learn anything.
yeah. Apple actually argued that scary did not mean something that would scare people, but that it was an industry term that meant raising awareness or caution.
Duh.
That's Apple's got those good lawyers.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Not good
Is
enough.
it? Yeah.
Yeah, for real.
Because what David, would you like to share what the judge said? The quote.
Oh, at the end of the injunction?
Yeah.
Like the Tim Cook chose poorly?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't
It
know
was
if I
something along the
have
lines
the
of like
exact thing here.
It was something along the lines of like, you know, we gave Apple the choice of how to handle this, and he goes, and Cook chose poorly.
Yeah. There were a bunch of bangers in that injunction. Okay. So also, the judge had originally said that Apple could charge a fee for apps that were linked outside the App Store, but it needed to provide evidence that the company had a good reason to charge those numbers, because she found that 30% wasn't actually based on anything, right? It's kind of just that random industry number that both Apple and Google decided on, and that became the number. So there were a bunch of conversations internally about what they should charge. Phil Schiller actually recommended that they didn't take any commission, which is quite surprising. But a lot of people were arguing, and Tim Cook eventually was like, no, we're going to do 27%.
27%.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they still take a cut if you get linked to an app outside the App Store, and then or a product outside the App Store, and then you have to back pay Apple that money.
Wow.
Yeah. So in the new ruling, the judge was still very annoyed and said that they just came up with the 27% number out of nowhere, which was true.
Yep.
They also restricted developers from doing things like keeping users logged in. So every single time they would use a link, they couldn't use dynamic links. They just had to use regular web links. So if you wanted to like go to the Epic store or whatever, you'd have to log into your Epic account every time you wanted to buy V-Bucks.
Or like, yeah, every time you want to buy V-Bucks, which as someone who's spent way too much money on skins in other games, it's pretty often.
Yeah.
So like every time
for
you
that
want,
Gojo drop.
Yeah.
like that's a lot, and to sign in every single time with probably a really long password that you've changed a million times because your friends are trying to hack you for your sweet Fortnite skins.
Yeah.
Gotta stay protected out there, man.
Yeah. Okay, so what happens now? Apple now has to give developers 0 restrictions when using buttons and links in their app to let users make purchases over the web. Because previously, when they would put that link in the app, or button, as they defined it as, even though it was like a regular little web link, they couldn't put it in the standard area where you buy things in the app. They had to put it somewhere else, which is insane. Like, that's an insane rule. So they can't do that anymore. They cannot take any commission for purchases made over the web, which is hilarious because the judge said you just have to like give me a justified number. Like, you have to justify that number and come up with reasons why that number makes sense. And because they just pulled it out of a hat, now she's saying you can't take any commission anymore.
They had a great reason. It made them a shit ton of money.
Yeah.
The value generated was incredible.
Yeah. This means that tons of apps are going to start including links to sign up for their subscriptions or have microtransactions through their website, so that Apple can't take that amount. Because now, if you're an app developer, you can have in the app, buy this thing, but then Apple takes 30%. But now you can also have go to our store, it opens it in Safari or whatever your default web browser is, and you can pay through there. And Apple can't take any of that money now.
Yeah. And they're going to tell you, hey, it's going to be cheaper if you go this way. It's going to incentivize people.
If they say this is 25% cheaper, the developer makes 5% more than they normally would, and they don't have to pay Apple, people are generally going to go with that option.
Yeah.
Which is kind of nuts. Like, this is a very big thing to change for the App Store. It was also found that Apple's executive VP of finance lied under oath about what that percentage was, because he had said that they came up with the number over a bunch of different, they came up with all this reasoning and it was at the last minute, and they actually had just come up with it earlier and were like, no, we're just going to take 27%. So she referred the California court to prosecute him potentially, which is kind of insane. Whoa. Yeah. So there was a lot of drama that was going down here.
Okay, wait, I have a question.
Yeah.
So you're saying that they now have links that developers can put it in their apps that will open up on Safari, right?
Yeah.
To do a thing.
Yeah.
So in the app, can't they also incentivize developers to put a pay with Apple Pay option?
Yeah.
So would that still have the 30%?
Yeah. As long as the payment
is not leaving the app.
If the payment is made within the app, Apple takes 30%.
Sheesh.
Yeah. Okay. But if you go to a website, then it's different.
I'm assuming these apps are also going to go really hard into the please go buy over here. You will spend way less money. And
100%.
That's what I would assume.
We've already seen a bunch of developers do this. Spotify has already done this. Patreon is doing that this week. Fortnite, Epic is doing it this week. They're putting Fortnite back on the App Store.
Yeah, they're putting it back on the App Store
in the next week. So
they're putting it back on. That's the news. Why didn't we?
Yeah.
lead with that?
Well, no, that's what all this boils. They won.
Yeah. Because the whole reason they got kicked off the App Store was because they did this, and now because they legally have to allow this, they're not violating anything anymore. So they have to allow them back on the App Store, which is crazy. So the future of this is going to be very interesting, because if Apple can no longer take 30% on every purchase anymore, because it is to the user's benefit to be able to go onto the web and buy something for cheaper, Apple services revenue off of the App Store is going to drop significantly, and that's a huge portion of their revenue.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that's one of the. I mean, it hits them where it hurts. That's a big deal for Apple. Mm-hmm. Very interesting.
Does this make the App Store less appealing to new developers?
Rolling?
Yeah.
Why?
I feel like it makes it more
appealing.
More appealing because you can use it as a platform for visibility, but then also send people out to get from your website. And
It also it makes Apple have to actually make it worth buying things within the app there. Are there actual things they're doing for these developers to make it easier to pay inside the app versus going to a website? Because there are people who will pay a little bit of a premium to make a one-tap payment or something like that. But if you're charging these crazy fees, I'm always going to take the extra 5 minutes to save 30% on my Galaxy Fortnite skin.
Right. Yeah, a comment that I saw online was that these indie developers and smaller developers, you could say whether or not Epic is indie or not, but they're effectively subsidizing a bank app, for example. Chase Bank pays $100 a year for that developer fee, and that is all they pay to Apple to host the Chase app. And Chase gets so much more value from hosting the Chase app than like a small indie developer does, who every time they have any sort of subscription or any microtransaction, Apple takes 30% of that. Like, that is insane. And so now it's sort of like evening the playing field so that everyone sort of has the same opportunity. Because Chase is the same way. Like, any bank is the same way. You sign up for the bank on a web browser or whatever. You go to a bank, you do that. You sign in through the app, and it's just a portal.
Yeah.
And that's what's going to be the case for pretty much all apps now. So, yeah. Big change. Apple is, of course, going to appeal this. But the judge did say there will not be another bite at the apple as her last sentence in the injunction.
Is this judge a rapper?
Yeah.
So many
This sounds like a
bars.
Netflix like drama
Yeah,
kind of with some of
yeah.
the lines they're dropping.
She was really mad. She was really mad.
Incredible.
Yeah.
That's one thing I find really interesting about all of this is like, man, Fortnite's really been around for a while.
Yeah.
That the fact that this is still like a big thing where they're bringing it back, and this started in 2021 when Fortnite was already huge. Like,
I mean, they have Sabrina Carpenter now, you know.
I was talking about this the other night with my friend because I hopped on Fortnite for like the first time. Actually, no, the second time ever. And he was telling me about all the new like updates that they did and all the new collabs. And I was like, is this the best game ever? Like, it is insane how big this game is and how every season people are so hyped to play this game still.
Dota 2 might like a word.
I know
I don't
no
know
one
about
that
that.
plays
That's-
Dota 2 besides
Am I
you.
no one to you, Adam?
Besides you.
I think you could argue right off the bat in current games that are very popular, that have been for a long time, is like Minecraft's pretty up there also.
More than Fortnite?
Yeah. Was there
It's been around longer.
Movie?
Huh.
Not yet.
Oh, that's
Not
true.
yet.
But they have had concerts in Fortnite. Is that considered a movie?
It's close. I'm just thinking about like, you know, the pantheon
Is
of
this
like
a movie?
media.
Is this a movie?
Minecraft's probably 1A and Fortnite 1B, I think, at this point.
It's.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Fortnite probably makes way more money than Minecraft. I'm totally guessing on that
They're back
because
in
of
the App
how
Store.
many crazy microtransactions there are in that game with skins
Yeah.
and stuff like that. But like, man, you just keep thinking Fortnite's gonna die, and it's still chugging.
I mean, it is crazy. Like, a lot of developers will release a game and then they maybe do like 1 or 2 seasons and they're like, we're going to stop supporting this now. 'cause
Or
it
here's
just
the new
costs too
version of
much.
it,
Or
yeah.
here's the new version. Whereas Epic is just like, yep, new things coming out every few weeks forever. But it's easy for them because they can just do all these collaborations, right? Now they have Star Wars coming out.
I mean, they're killing it.
Yeah.
Came out. That's why I jumped on.
Oh, you did?
I got the Luke Skywalker skin, baby.
The fact that they can grab someone who's played the game one time to just
Yeah.
jump on, and I bet that was like a $30 skin.
Yep.
$22.99. I think, something
bro,
like
you
that.
literally played one time, jumped on, spent
No, I had
22
to buy
bucks,
the
and I bet you don't even.
V-Bucks. I think I spent like $8.99 real life money on the V-Bucks or
And
whatever.
do you
I don't know.
plan
They
on-
got me more or less is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Got.
Yeah. So there's been a lot of tech antitrust stuff going on recently. There's a big story about how Google might have to sell Chrome. Nobody knows who's going to buy that if that happens. The ad tech business for Google might get broken up and have to be sold off. There's a lot of crazy
Seems to be the
stuff.
theme of 2025, along with tariffs.
Yeah. Well, a lot of this stuff started in like 2021.
We're just getting like real things we're almost seeing. It's like some actual action towards it.
Hey, well, thanks for listening to this episode. We hope it satisfied your prompt. Let us know if you want to have another discussion and just put in another prompt and we'll make another podcast about it. The prompt section is down there. It's disguised as a comment section, but it's just a prompt for the next LLM podcast. Catch you guys next week. Peace.